Greetings, 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 everyone. Steve, Paracords of Kindness. How are you doing this fine evening? Hopefully your weaving has been happy. To all the new subscribers, welcome. To all those who've been here before, thanks for sticking around. What I have for you today is by multiple requests. Eccentric Fishtail. Eccentric Fishtail. And how to do the center stitching. I've done quite a few of these, and I've had some people ask me how I do this. So stick around, and I'll show you how it's done. Alright, folks, thanks for tuning in. For those who've never seen any of my videos, I'll tell you up front, I am not a filmmaker. I am a paracordologist. Don't have the best camera, and the lighting's not that great. But I try to explain exactly what I'm doing in such a way that you will fully understand this. Now, as for this one, I posted it, I've had quite a few people ask me about this. And to be honest with you, when I did this, I was attempting to do another style of stitching, and it just did not look right. So I ended up doing this, and I started having people ask me about it, and I went and looked for a video tutorial, and I couldn't find one. So apparently that's why everybody's asking. So I figured I would make this. I would fill that vacuum, if you will. Okay, now I'll say this. If you don't know how to make an eccentric fishtail, there's quite a few videos. Just type in eccentric fishtail paracord bracelet YouTube search bar. You'll get a whole bunch of them come up. Watch those. But I'll give you the basics who are limited on time, because for those who have been here before, you know I like to talk. But if you're limited on time, I'll just give you a brief explanation of this. Maybe you can figure this out. For those who don't know, an eccentric fishtail is a 6-strand core bracelet. You have 2 strands on one side and 2 strands on the other side, and then the 2 strands in the middle, the actual colors get wrapped around. You see what I'm saying? And basically, when we're going to do the stitching, all we're doing is wrapping our stitching around those 2 center strands, if that makes sense. We're wrapping it around those 2 center strands, and we start at the top and we work our way down. Okay, I'll show you on this one that I'm wearing exactly what I'm talking about. Let me get my handy dandy laser pointer out. If we look at this, okay, we see how you have one stitching that's angled this direction, right? And then the other side is angled this direction. Now, when I do this, the way I do this is I do one angle first. Usually this one, because it's the top one, right? I come from here, and I go through here. And then it wraps around the back, and it comes back out on the next, just under, and it goes across, and it goes through, and it wraps around the back. So you start at the top and you work your way all the way down, and you're only doing that one angle. And that's one piece of microcord. Then I take another separate piece of microcord, and I come back and I do the other angle. I do the same thing, just on the opposite, mirror image, and work my way all the way down. Make sense? That's all there is to this. It's not really that hard. Now, to get it to go through there, yeah, that can be a little tricky. And like always, when you weave this bracelet, like I tell everybody always, if you know you're going to be stitching it, don't pull it so tight. Everyone knows my principles, neat, clean, and tight. But when I know I'm going to be stitching one, I don't pull everything as tight as I normally would. Why? I want to leave a little bit of, give, so my lacing needle, my stitching needle, my fib will go through there. And after you do it all, it tightens itself up. Does that make sense? Okay, that's all there is to this. Now, I'll show you how I did this. And there's an important tip I'll throw in there. It's just an attention to detail type thing that I noticed when I made this, and it made it look so much better. Okay, now, with that said, we'll get started. I've already got my cord. What I've got here, this is Royal Blue Indigo Night. This is burgundy, and I'm going to be using gold stitching. Now, you ready for this? I'll throw a little trivial piece of information out there. I ordered this Royal Blue Indigo Night from one of the paracord companies. And at first, it was a new color, and they had it labeled as Indago. Indago night. And I'm like, what in the world? And I went and looked that word up to see what it meant. And I was like, I don't understand what's that got to do with it. Right? And my other half, she was like, don't you mean indigo night? I said, no, here's the invoice. And I showed her on the invoice. She's like, yeah, it says Indago night. I went on there the other day looking around. Well, apparently somebody made a typo because it was actually supposed to be Indigo Night, and they've changed it on their website. So, with all that said, I've posted in the past where I've used this color, and it says Indago Night. So if anybody sees any of my posts on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, and you're like, what? It's Indigo Night. And I was simply going by what the website called it. I just thought that was funny. They come back afterwards and they changed it, and I thought, I guess somebody just misspelled it when they put it on their website. Either way, I just thought that was kind of humorous. But I've got my invoice over there showing where it says Indago with an A, night. Okay, anyway, with all that said, I'll show you how to do this. It's not that hard. I'll start and I'll do a little bit of one side, and then I'll come back and I'll show you, start the other side, and then I'll show you how I wrap it all up. And, this is the way I do them. This is the way I do these. No matter how much slack I have at the end of one of these bracelets, whether, 3 or 4 inches or 2 feet, whatever, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm one who I tend to have a lot of slack, a lot of scrap pieces. Why? Because I want to make sure I have enough cord to finish the bracelet. It's the most frustrating thing when you get close to the end and you realize, man, I don't have enough cord. I should have cut more. And I know some people will splice it together and they'll hide the splice. I don't do that. I will not do that. I will simply unweave it, all that becomes scrap, and I'll go cut me some more and start over. That's just me. That's the way I am. I guess, neat, clean, tight, perfect. I ain't going to say I'm a perfectionist. But no matter, when I get done and I go to cut them, I always leave it hanging. About an inch or so. Depending on the nature and if that style, that weave has a tendency to want to come get real loose, I might leave a little more. But I do that because I have learned through experience that if you try to cut and burn these ends now and then come back and stitch it, a lot of times you're trying to feed that fin through a big glob of hard plastic, and it's not easy. So I just leave it like that, and once I get done doing everything, that's when I do my final cut and burn. Makes sense? Just a little useful trick. Okay, now, with that said, we'll start. I made this bracelet. This one is for my wife. She's got a 6.5-inch wrist, and, you got to add to. This one's a little thicker than a normal fishtail, so you're going to add to a little bit more when you go to measure it out. But I've got approximately 5 feet of micro cord. Now, most likely, that's going to be a little much. But, like I say, I'd rather have enough. I'd rather have too much than not have enough, right? Okay, now, I'll shut up talking and we'll get to this. Like I said, this is not that hard. You start off the way I start off. Come over here on the back side. Like I said, I'm going to do, if we look right here, I'm going to do this angle right here in between this red, this burgundy, and this indigo night. I'm going to do right here where the tip of this fid is. It's going to come out here, and it's going to go in here. And it's going to wrap around the back, and then it's going to come out here, and it's going to go there. Basically, what we're going to end up doing is have a zigzag or a lightning bolt type stitch all the way down. I showed you this one. We can see. All right? Now, I'll show you how I do this. It's not hard. It's not hard. Once you see this and you have a mind's eye, a picture in your mind's eye of the innards of this bracelet, and you see what I'm doing, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. All right? Okay. We come back on the back. Now, you come back 2, 3, 4, however many you want, and you just run it up. I usually do about 3. You just go up under there. Now, I'm going to try to keep this in frame for everybody. But if not, because I got to actually be able to see to do this. Like I said, I didn't weave it extremely tight because I knew I was going to be doing this. But it'll tighten itself up. Just run it up under about 3 of them. And we're going to pull it through. We're going to pull that slack through there. Okay, now we get to the end. Leave you some hanging. Not so much that it gets in the way, but just enough that it's not going to slide back up under there. Okay, and then I always kind of press it back down. That way it kind of creates some resistance. So, it's less likely to come through. Okay, now we get started. We're going to run through this back. And I'll say that here's a tip I learned. Sometimes you try to come in from one direction and you can't get the needle to go through correctly and in a right angle, and you try not to snag the cord. Sometimes what you can do is back your needle out, flip the bracelet over to the other side where you want it to come out at, and kind of go in the other direction and kind of loosen up that gap in there, right? And then come back, take it back out, and then go back to the other side. Does that make sense? That's the way you're making the hole for the needle to go through. But this one, let me see if I can't do this one. We get this out of the way, and we're going to go right through the top. Basically, when I do this, it's going to go through there, and all this excess cords is just going to be sucked down in there and buried, and you're not going to see it. Okay. We're just going through right there at the top. Hopefully we can see it here. Let me get this out of the way. We're just going right through, right in between the bottom of the buckle and the top of that blue, that top blue that wraps around. And we're going to come out on the other side. We see where we're coming out, right? We're going to just pull the slack there. And a lot of times I'll take my thumb and I'll hold that piece. That way, it's even less chance of me pulling that cord through there. And then we just pull all this through. Being mindful of the twists. Okay, now see, when I go to pull it through, it just kind of disappears down in there, right? Okay, now, what we're going to do is we're going to run it right there. And we're going to go through right here. Now remember, like I said, you've got two core strands over here on this side. You got 2 in the middle. What you're doing is going in between those 2 on that side and the 2 that are in the middle. You're running your needle right through there. And you're going to come out on the back. Just up under. Just up under, right here in this area. Right? We're not so much worried about the back side of it, but we want the display side. And there's a trick. I'll show you when I come back and do the other angle, the trick I'm talking about. It makes the bracelet so much more. It makes it look so much more better. Okay, now we're going to take this and we're going to run it through right here in this area. Now, let me see if I can get it to go through there. Without snagging everything, we gotta see. I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna kind of widen that hole up for myself. Bam. See how we got it go? We got it through there, and we can see where we're coming out at. Okay, now we're just gonna pull the slack through. Now the first one, it's not going to sit exactly where you want it. May not be perfect. But it'll eventually, like all these bracelets, it'll eventually line up and it'll go right where you want it. Okay. We just give it a little snug. A little tug. Oops, sorry, I'm all out of frame. I'm sorry about that. There you go. There's your first one. All right. Now, we're on the back side and we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to follow at this angle. We're going to go from where we are to right in here. We're going to go in between these 2 outer core strands and these 2 inners. right through here. Once you do this a few times, you realize, you're like, okay, I see how this is being done. All right, let me see if I can't get this to go through here. And because I've anchored that gold cord, it's kind of right there in that way. Kind of pry it out of the way a little bit. Okay, give me a second. Let me make sure I snagged my cord. So I've got one of these magnifying light globes. Hey, if you can afford one and you do this quite often, this thing comes in very useful. I use it for the lighting and to make sure that I have not snagged my cord. But you see where I went through. Here, let me put this back up here. You see where I went through. Basically, the same spot that you go through. You'll see the pattern. And on this side, I'm coming out basically in the same spot, just one cord lower. Right? Okay. Now we're going to run it through. We pull it through. Be mindful of the cord because the cord will get twisted. All right. So how it looks on the back, you've got that angle. All right. Now on the front side, we're going to do it one more time. We're coming out here and we're going to go in right in here. And if you picture in your head, what we're doing is following this blue cord, how it wraps around, like I say, in between these two outer core strands and the two inner core strands, where this blue goes in between them. You're just following that through, right? So let's do this one more time. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Right. See where it's going through at. We see where it's coming out at. Just run it through. And we pull it through. And we see where it's going to sink. Kind of get that twist out. Boop. And it's going to sink right there in between the two. And we're just going to continue all the way down. Now, granted, it's going to have a little gaps in there because you put your needle. But once you get done, you're going to kind of work it. And all the gaps will fill back in. All right. We're going to do this. I'll show you one more time. Now, like I said, be mindful of where you've anchored this gold cord because it's running up under there. And you don't want to jam through that. So you kind of be careful. You look right in there. You can see. Like I say, like I said, sometimes I'll come around to the front side, go in backwards and kind of loosen it up. That way I make the hole. There we go. And that's it. You can see where that gold is coming through. Just grab the end of it and just pull it right down in there. We see where I'm going through the same spot. And where it's coming out, same spot on the other side. Just one cord lower. Pull the slack through. And that's all there is to it. Right? I'm going to do the front again. Following that blue cord around through these two outer cord strands. Make sure I don't have anything snagged. Right? We see where I'm going through. Where I'm coming out at. That's all there is to it. We just pull the slack out. Make sure we don't have any twist. Give it a little snug. And that's all there is to it. Now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and I'll do all this side. And I'll cut my cord off and leave it hanging like this. And I'll come back and I'll start the other side. And I'll show you the trick. There's a tip I want you to hang around and see, because it will, once I point this out to you, you'll go, oh, yes, yes, yes. But let me finish this, and I'll come back, and I'll start the other side, and I'll show you that. And I'll show you how to, once I get done, I'll show you how to finish it off. But stick around. Okay, we're back. I got this side done. We can see all those angles running that way are done. And I got one last little section to do. I figured I'd come back and just show you how I anchor off this end of the cord. Now, I told you I cut 5 feet of cord. Now, this was a bracelet for 6.5-inch wrist. And I told you I cut 5 feet of micro cord. And I've got about 1.5 feet extra, right? So this new piece that I've cut, I cut it at 4 feet. So, but I'll show you how I did this last one. This last one, we're going to run it. Now, we all know that the top and the bottom is always a little different than your normal repetitions down through there. But we're going to do this one. We're going to run this back one. The way I do it, I'm going to run this back one. Yeah, we're going to run it right through here. I'm going to go right through there. And I'm going to come out in the same spot on this one. Yeah. We see that where I went through, where I'm coming out. Pull a slide through, mindful of the twist. Okay. On this last one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through right here. I'm going to come out just above the blue cord. I'm just following that piece of blue through there. Right? And then I'm going to run it up under this burgundy. And I'm going to come out. Right? And then I'll show you how I start the other side. And I'll give you the little tip that I mentioned before. I've seen some people do this bracelet, and first time I did it, I did the same thing, and I looked at it and I was like, there's got to be a better way to make it look better, make it neater, neat, clean, tight, right? And get this to go through here without snagging anything. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. See where I went through? You can see where I've come out. We're gonna pull the slack through. Mindful of the twist. And now we're just going to run it up under this burgundy. I don't know, 3 or 4. It's kind of hard to see. Let's go up under one more. Let's go under 4. Alright. I'm going to go up under 4. Uh-oh. About to snag the cord. Let's not do that. And we're going to come out. We're going to just pull that up through there. Snug it down. Give it a little tug. And we're going to cut it just like we did the other ones. We're going to leave some hanging. And then I always come back and burn it so it doesn't fray there at the end while I'm working with it. And my scrap pieces, before I put them in my scrap, I always get the end of it. That way it's not all frayed. Okay, now. Okay. Ooh. Really? I thought I had that already. Yeah, let me do this again. It's gonna be difficult. It's getting camera shy. Let's see, maybe that'll work. Yeah, that's gonna work right there. I always try to get it so I can pull on it and it's not gonna come out of there. Reason being I do that is because, you know, when you go to stitch stuff, your cord, you're twisting the bracelet and twisting the cord, and you get twists inside in your micro cord. What I'll do is I'll grab it by the end and let the needle kind of hang and just kind of run my finger down, and that'll get all the twists out. That way there's no chance that the needle falls off the end of it. Make sense? Okay, now, we'll stretch this out, make sure we ain't got no twists in it. Get the lighter out of the way. Try to, especially when you're stitching, try to keep your work area clean so that your excess don't get snagged on anything. Hence, one of the reasons I try to cut these as short as possible. Okay, now, for this side, this is the way I do this. Some bracelets you can't do this on, but some you can. If I'm doing stitching and you're doing like a trilobite where you got two sides and you're stitching on either side, being big and wide, you can't always do it. But I'll try to have the two anchors of microcord right there in the same spot. Instead of having a cut and burn on one side and a cut and burn on the other, try to keep it neat as possible. And on this one, you can do it. You can run them both up under right here in the same spot. That way you only have one cut and burn right there in one spot. Makes sense? Okay, so we're going to run this one. And I always do this one just easier on the outside of that piece that's already in there. That way there's no chance of you snagging it or these other ones that you've already done. You come over here on the outside and you do it. And you do it just like you did before. You just run up under 3 or 4, however many you chose. I do them the same amount. That way the cut and burn will be in the same spot in the very end. Trying to get it to go through there without snagging anything. It wants to be difficult. It's wanting to snag right there. There we go. Okay, we see what I did there? Basically just like I did before with this other piece, right? And we're going to pull it up. Like I said, because we've loosened all that blue up, kind of put your finger on it. That way it creates some friction so you don't accidentally pull it all the way through and have to do it again. All right, we'll leave it hanging. So we got 2 of them there. We'll come back in the end and we'll cut and burn those. Okay, now on this one, what we're going to do here, this one's a little bit more difficult. you're gonna have to find your way through. But what we're going to do, okay, so if I can explain this, this is the tip that I was talking about. This is the tip. This will make it look so much better. But it takes a little bit of attention to detail to get this to do right. It makes this leg of doing the stitching a little bit more difficult because you got to be mindful of where you're running this needle through. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch. See, we've done this angle all the way down. Now we're going to do the other angle. We're going to come from, this is the top front of the bracelet. We're going to come from this side to this side, right? Okay. We did the zig, now we're doing the zag, so to speak. But I want you to see this. Okay, because this angle, I'm going to see if I can explain this in a way that it will make sense. This angle right here is on the top side, toward the top of the bracelet. The one I'm about to do is on the bottom. It's lower. So, when we come out of this hole, it's going to come out the same place. The zig is this piece. Okay, I'm going to just label it that way so we know what I'm talking about. This angle is the zig. We're about to do the zag. The zag is going to come out below the zig. Does that make sense? We want it to come out underneath between the red and the gold. Between those two. We don't want to come out up above that gold piece. We want to come out below. So now it's on this one, not so much. It's kind of hard to do. But once you start the pattern and going down through here, you be mindful of that. You want it to come out below the gold that you've already stitched. Does that make sense? And every one of them that way. I've seen people do this, and believe me, when I first did this a few times, I made this mistake. I would come out with the zag, the angle I'm doing now, above that piece of gold. And it would cross over the top of it, and it doesn't look right. If you pay attention and you look at that, you're like, yeah, that doesn't look right. It doesn't make for a neat stitch, if that makes any sense. Okay, now like I said, this first one, because we're kind of having to fumble through all this, and we know the top and the bottom is always the most difficult part. But we're going to try to get this right. And what you do, because you want to come out below that gold, when you go through on the back side, go below. You're going to go through the same spot right here, but you're going to go below that piece of gold. That way when you come out, you'll come out below the piece of gold on this side. Does that make sense? I would love to show you. Do it the wrong way, let you see it, and then do it the right way. Let me see. If this one on my arm, let's see if there's one. I think I messed it up. This is one of the first ones I did. Okay, let's see if I can show you this. You'll see what I'm talking about. If you pay close attention to this, you should be able to see this. Let me angle this. Okay. If we look at these two right here, you see how this gold goes in on the top, but the gold on the bottom comes out below it. And it looks good. If you look at some of them, like this one, I can get my hand over here. This one right here, you see how this piece is angled this way? The bottom one it's coming out in the wrong place compared to the one just above it right there. We see this right here at the tip of this fid, where those two gold pieces, one's going in and one's coming out. You see how it doesn't look right. That's the attention to detail when I do these things, right? But you see the one just below it, it looks correct. The one below that looks correct. The one below that looks correct. See how one's going in, the one at the top side of the bracelet is going in at the top. And then the gold on the bottom, well, it's coming out at the bottom. And it's the same way on this side of the bracelet. Does that make sense what I'm talking about? That's the tip. I mean, no offense to anybody, I made this one. This is one of the first ones I did, and I started looking at it. You can see up here at the top where I messed it all up. Now that I pointed, you see how this is right here? This piece that's right up under, this angled this way, right up under that fid. You see how it looks short compared to the piece above it angled the other direction. It's because the two gold cords right here are not orientated top and bottom in the correct way. Same two over here on this side, these two cords. Does that make sense? Can you see what I'm talking about? Now, I know some people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's how attention to detail I am about these things. Like I said, this is one of the first ones I did, and I did it, and I was like, yeah, that's not right. That's not right. There's got to be a way. And it all comes to do with making sure you run it through on the bottom here, and then when you go through on the other side and you go to come back through on the other side of the bracelet, you run it below. You have to be mindful of this second leg. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, now this first one, like I said, this first one, see how I did that? It gets the twists out? Okay. We're going to do this. Hopefully I can get this to do right. I'm going to run it right here, but I'm going to go just below. Through that same spot that piece of gold went through, but I'm going to try to go underneath between that gold and this red piece. That way when it comes out, it'll come out on the bottom side. Does that make sense? Like I said, this first one, it may not do it just right. Yeah, there it is. You see how it's coming out? See how it's coming out below the gold piece above? That's what I'm talking about. Some people are like, man, really? He's splitting hairs over it. Yeah, I'd rather split hairs than split my microcord. But you see what I'm talking about? So you could have it coming out. Right? Now, same thing on the other side. But when we do it, we're going to go above this. Here, let me get this out of the way. This piece of gold running at this angle, we're going to go in. We're going to go in the same spot, but we're going to go above it. Right? I know people are like, oh my God, that's what makes your bracelet look good. First glance, you're like, man, that looks great. But then you start looking at it and you're like, wow, that stitching doesn't look, yeah, that was me. The first couple of times I did it, then I realized, I was like, okay, I'm going to fix that. Now, like I said, this one right here, this first, because sorry, I'm all out of frame. When I come through over here on this side, you got to be mindful because you've got these little pieces that are running right up there anchored. What I'll do is I'll kind of try to move them out of the way a little bit so I potentially don't snag them. Okay, now I'm going to try this. I'm going to go same spot that gold's going through, but I'm going to do it on the top side. Yep. And you see how it's coming out below the cord above it. Let me run it through these things. See what I'm saying? We'll pull that slack through. Mindful of our twists. Now, notice when I pull this tight, now you can't see it very well because this is the first one, but you see how the one I just did, the angled piece this direction, it's going in the same spot the other gold is, but it's above it. It's not crossing over. Because this cord is above that cord, we want it to stay in the hole above that cord. Now, the back side, not so much. But when I go to run through this side, and I come out over here, oops, sorry. When I go through this time on the back side, and I come out over here, I want to come out below the zig, and I want the zag to come out underneath that gold. Does that make sense? So on the back side, you do that. You look at it, and I'm going to go through right here, if I can get it to focus. I'm going to go through right here, but I'm going to keep it underneath that piece of gold. Underneath that piece of gold, and just above that red. Now, the method I'm doing this, it doesn't equate to the back looking correct. The back does not look correct, but this is not the display side. We want the display side to look good. You see what I'm saying? So, we're going to run that through. We're going to go below that gold microcord. We already have. That way, when we come out the other side, we're going to be on the bottom. I'm going to pull this slack through and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You'll see it. See, the back side, it doesn't look right. But on the front side, see, it's coming out below. I notice it's small, it's the little things that I see. Attention to detail. If you take a little bit of time and patience and do it, it will equate to the whole thing looking great. Somebody may never notice it, but you as the person who did it, you will notice it. And other people, I see it. I never say anything to people, but I see other people's work and I'm like, you may not even realize it. I said, but as soon as somebody points it out to you, you'll go, oh, you'll see it every time. I say stuff like that. Now, same thing. We're going to go through on this side, but we're going to get that out of the way. We're going to go through on this side, but we're going to go above the gold. The two golds are meeting in the same spot, but we're going to keep this one above, right? And that's all there is to it. Like I said, the second leg, you got to kind of be mindful because you got to get these overs and unders, if you will, correct. Again, we've got to be mindful of those cords those anchor cords that are running up. We don't want to jam through the middle of them either. Pull the slack through, mindful of the twists. All right. Now, we see how this top one is on the top and the bottom one's on the bottom. Same thing here. Top's on the top, bottom's on the bottom. If you're just mindful and you pay attention to what you're doing, you do the whole thing, it looks great. Okay, now we're going to do this next one. We're going to do it. We go through beneath the gold, so we come out beneath the gold. the slack through, mindful of the twists. Bam, and that's it. And we can see it has come out below. Does that make sense? Do we see what I'm talking about? Hopefully that you can understand what I'm trying to point out. Now, some of you may go, I don't care. But it just equates to a neater bracelet. When you pay attention to the small details like that. And now we just continue on all the way down. And I'll do this, and I'll come back and I'll show you. I'll clip all the ends and I'll show you how I do all this. But I'm gonna just run this out, and I'll come back in a minute and I'll show you how to finish it. Okay, folks, I'm back and I got it finished, and I'm gonna show you what I was talking about the overs and the unders, and paying attention to how you run that needle through there, and you can see the difference. I'll show you the front first. Now notice how they all look the same, right? Now, like I said, this is the display side. We want this side to be neat and clean, which it is. Now let's look at the back. We see how all the angles this way are longer. They look longer than the angles that are the other way. Like I said, when I first did this, I made this mistake. I wasn't paying attention. And some of them looked like this on the front, and then some of them looked like this. And when I finished and I stepped back and looked at it, I'm like, okay, we learn from our mistakes. We learn from experience. From now on, do it this way, because it looks so much better when you just pay that little bit of attention. First, you got to realize it. See, that was the thing. I didn't realize until I sat there and I looked at it and I started thinking about it. And I'm like, okay. We got to fix that. But see how much better it looks than that? Now, granted, it's all even because I paid attention, and they're all the same. But it just, to me, in my opinion, it looks better, the front side, when you have the top one going in at the top and the bottom one coming out at the bottom. And on this side, the top one going in at the top and the bottom one coming out at the bottom. As opposed to, they look like they're not coming out in the right place and it looks all funky. Right? Okay, but now we got that done. I just wanted to point that out. You know, maybe it doesn't mind. It doesn't bother you, whatever. But I know when I did that, I seen that and I was like, okay, we got to do that and make that look better. And that's what I did. Okay, now I'm gonna show you how I end this. I got it coming out, and all I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna try to keep the two anchors where I'm gonna cut and burn the anchors. I'm gonna keep them on the same side. You can do it on this bracelet. Now some of them you can't, but on this one you can. So I'm gonna just basically take this, I'm gonna run it up under these reds on the same, just like I did this other one. I'm gonna do it, bend these up out of the way. I got enough slack, see, barely have enough slack to get it to do it. Give me a second. Ooh, might not be able to do it with that fid on there, and I don't have a shorter fid. May have to get out my hemostats. Yeah, we're gonna have to do this a different way. See, this is another reason. See how what I'm getting at is there's not enough slack in the micro cord to bend that fid back over and to get it to go up under where we want it. We're kind of fighting with it. It's not going to do it right. That's another reason I like to have a little bit of slack there on the end. But that's okay. We can do this. We can make this work. Take our hemostats. We're going to come in. Oof. Hopefully I can get this to do. Yeah, it's going to go through there. It's going to be a tight squeeze, but it's going to go through there. All I'm doing is running that hemostats up under that. If I can get them down in there just enough to get them to open up, maybe not, maybe. We're going to see. Yeah, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. Maybe I just made a big enough hole I can get it to go up under there like this. No, that ain't going to work either. We're going to have to put the fid back on there. Believe me, I'll get this to work. Because I ran them hemostats under there, it kind of created a gap that I can probably get it to go through there. Yeah, once I get it started, I think it'll go through there. Yeah, there we go. There we go. We got it. Now before I pull it, I got it through there. I'm going to tuck it, those two pieces through there. That way it's running on, that way it's running on this side. See? I'm going to kind of shape it again because I distorted it with that big old thick hemostat up under there. That's okay though, we'll fix it. Get the fit out of the way. Just the nature of the way I end this, there's a little gap right here between these two reds and these two blues. There's not really much you can do about it. You can pull it tight. But we all know, like I've said, we all know that the end and the top never look like the middle. It never does. We try our best to make it look that way, but it never looks like all that. Okay, now that we got everything, make sure we got all the slack pulled out. Yeah, we're going to tighten that one right there up. Okay, now, get all this out of the way. Here, mess. Okay, now, another little tip. I just throw this out there. Have your smoothing tool, whatever it is you use to smooth, have it ready on the ready. Sometimes, I'll say this, sometimes these cords, whether it be the microcord or the regular cord, whatever, it'll be laying flat. Kind of poke it up. That way when you go to cut it, it's sticking out. And it's not all laying flat and you're having trouble. You're melting the bracelet while you're trying to burn it. Does that make sense? Have them sticking up. Okay. We see where I did it. So I got one burn mark, or cut and burn, as opposed to one on either side. It just makes for a neater look. Even though this is the back side of the bracelet, you know, but we still want to keep it as neat as we can, right? Okay. Now we're going to kind of move these out of the way and do these other two. We're going to do it the same way. Before you do all this, make sure you got all your slack and everything pulled out, everything's tight, because once you do this, you can't change it. All right. Be mindful of where the heat's going, because you don't want to burn those. Alright. Now these last two. And like I've said on some of my other videos, when you have them like this, see how they're kind of angling toward the side of the bracelet? That's fine. When we cut them and then we go to burn them, I will always start here and roll or smooth this way so it pushes it all back. That way, when you look at the front, you don't see it hanging, you don't see that big burn hanging over the edge. Try to keep everything on the back side, because we want the front or the display side to look as presentable as possible. Now the way I've done this is going to cause the end of this bracelet to be a little thicker than the rest of it. But that's okay. Now, like I said, from the outside toward the middle. It pushes all that plastic toward the middle so it's not hanging over that edge. So you don't see it. Now, like I said, the end of the bracelet and the beginning of the bracelet never look as good as the middle. But there you go. That's how you do it. Now, granted, it's not completely straight, but I've already done one like this, so I'm not going to be taking a picture and posting it. But if I was, I would get any kind of dust off of it, sit it up there, and kind of get it straight before I take a picture to present it. The way it all looks good. Especially when you lay it out flat, if any of you take a picture of it like this, you see how it's all bent and crooked? We straighten that out. We straighten that out. That way it looks straight when we take a picture of it. You don't have your buckles all cocked at an angle. You have them everything straight in a line. For those who are in the military, cover in a line. You'll know what I'm talking about. Try to keep it as straight as we can. But there you go. That's it. That's how you stitch the eccentric fishtail. The way I do it anyway. Hopefully that was helpful. Stick around. I'll be making more videos. And like I say, always, keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.